Thank you so much for tuning into this special Coburn Conversations. We're excited to share a strategic plan with you. For those who might be new, Coburn Place offers compassionate care and safe housing choices for survivors of domestic violence and their children. My name is Courtney Kibble, and I'm a board member here at Coburn Place. If you have questions throughout, please feel free to put them in the chat. At the end, we will invite our CEO, Rachel Scott, to join us for a Q&A. But now I'd like to introduce two of my fellow board members who will share more about this plan and the course set for the next 3 years at Coburn Place. First of all, let me introduce myself. As I said, I'm Courtney Kibble. I am the program director of More Than a Phone and the executive director of Round Room Gives. These two roles are about partnership. My day-to-day life is grounded in helping employees connect with nonprofits in their community and with helping nonprofits, especially domestic violence agencies, connect with life-giving tools of communication and care. Then we have Shonna Quick-Crowell. She is the vice president of AFSCME Local 725, where she champions workers' rights with unwavering dedication. Shonna is deeply committed to community service. In addition to serving on the board of directors at Coburn Place, she is a passionate facilitator at a local youth center, where she mentors young people. And then Danyette Smith is the first director of domestic violence prevention for the city of Indianapolis with the Indy Public Safety Foundation, the founder of Silent No More, Inc., and was the director of strategic initiatives at the Domestic Violence Network. She sits as a board member of the Marion County Domestic Violence Fatality Review Board. So we are so happy to have you here today, and we are going to go ahead and let Shonna and Danyette take it away.
Thank you for the introduction, Courtney. As a new board member, joining during the creation of this strategic plan was exciting. It felt like a time when we were sharpening the approach that we feel will make the biggest difference.
I agree, Shonna. I've been on the board for a few years now. I direct a partner domestic violence agency, so I feel the urgency of what our city is grappling with domestic violence rates as they're skyrocketing still, and so is the gun violence. All of it is so connected, and when I thought about this plan, I knew that our work at the Coburn Place was going to offer a key piece of what families across our city really need. Having a need and a dream doesn't mean the course is laid out at our feet. Of course not. If you have been around the block, you know that having a plan does not mean our path would be linear. We live in a disorderly world. So despite our best laid plans, truly anything can happen. It has felt like we're at a turning point or a crossroads. So I say, we had to ask, where should our team focus? Housing as many families as possible, offering deeply personalized healing paths, supporting families after they move out, offering more varied types of housing support, expanding children's programming, launching an endowment campaign. We had to hone in on what survivors need the most.
So the plan we'll show you is the North Star of the Coburn Place we aspire to be. The Coburn Place we want to be in the city of Indianapolis, but it won't predict the way each part of the journey will unfold.
Exactly, Shonna. The goal was to create something that helps us adapt faster to change and unexpected circumstances without the worry of drifting from a true center of gravity. So let's dig in, friends. Let's start with talking about how we got here.
Like many human service organizations, the work of the last 3 years at Coburn Place has been about recovering from the alarming and nearly capsizing rise in need in 2020 to 2021. We've been dedicated to building efficient and sustainable infrastructure, knowing a strong foundation was necessary before we went out with a kite and a key, hoping for lightning. With that grounding, here's how we built this plan. First, we listened to our community. We contracted with Black Onyx Management and started with strategic input and community listening sessions, namely with our most important stakeholders, current and former clients. Who knows better what is working and what the vision should be than survivors themselves? We heard a few important patterns of feedback. One, survivors want more ways of and more focus on healing. Safe housing is just not enough. Two, survivors and our partners, both in housing and in domestic violence, see us as important leaders in the field, and we need to lean into that. Our community sees this as work that we must do together. We need each other to raise the support needed to help families get what they need to start over. And finally, domestic violence is not someone's problem. The cycle of abuse is a house fire, and the flames don't stop at the threshold. It can destroy everything in its path. It incites increased gun violence, danger that spills out toward family, friends, and bystanders. Children are harmed most of all. Their futures are robbed. It hurts our entire community. To make a real difference, we must work together. Families and partners are looking to us to lead the way.
You can imagine that out of all this feedback, what we saw was that the plan needed to be actionable, tactical, and relevant. We needed something that we could embed into our ways of working with measurables that make sense. We needed aspiration that were also a roadmap. We also knew we needed to stay committed to emergent strategy. We want to reimagine and re-involve, learn from what we do, and adjust along the way. Rigid adherence to the plan isn't success in our eyes. Change is constant, and we needed the strategies to help us weave it into a way we do business.
And I would add one other thing, which is the most important thing. We approach building the plan with optimism. We know it is possible to recover from the trauma of domestic violence and homelessness. Healing requires a transformational response, and it's one that Coburn Place specializes in offering.
Without further ado, here is our strategic plan for the next 3 years, where Fresh Start begins. We have 4 goals centering around survivors' experience: our housing programs, staff culture, and our community of support. We'll spend the next few minutes drilling down into each one and then have plenty of time for questions.
Our first goal: reimagine and evolve survivor-centered services. We want a place where survivors feel very connected to their own agency. We want there to be consistent communication, ample pathways to healing. Why reimagine and evolve? One reason is because we have many guiding principles that intersect and emphasize each other to create something uniquely tailored to survivors of domestic violence. One that is very important to us is called trauma-informed care. Another is voluntary service, and also housing survivors first. This approach, an overlapping of many models, is what we call the Coburn way. And by continuing to define and expand it, we know that survivors will have access to exactly what they need, and that other domestic violence organizations can look to us as a roadmap for how to offer care.
So we talk a lot about trauma here, and I want to jump in to share a bit more about why trauma matters so much. We talk about trauma because we know that domestic violence and homelessness cause prolonged trauma for families, and that it harms them physically, emotionally, and relationally. Trauma damages so much, and it has a measurable impact on the brain. It causes some areas to grow and some to shrink. Suddenly, it can be difficult to make decisions, remember details, but you might remember terrible things that have happened to you in vivid detail, and as if they've happened only a minute ago. You also might have a hard time trusting people. or have a high level of anxiety. And this is your brain making it so that you're constantly fighting for survival. And we think that trauma survivors have gone through should be acknowledged in our work, and it should shape the way that we offer programming. You'll also hear us talk more about whole family a lot. Did you know that kids who experience domestic violence are 6 times more likely to die by suicide as adults? They are 3 times more likely to abuse or be abused as well. Not only that, they're more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol, commit violent crimes, or have a high ACEs score that are tied to poor health outcomes. Kids and families are profoundly impacted by domestic violence, and that impacts last generations. Part of the strategic plan is to acknowledge that and target the family's unit as most important resources and connections to be restored during the time of healing at Coburn Place. Whole family services are ones that simultaneously meet a parent and a child's need, helping them heal together and reconnect. This might look like something fun. For instance, parents and kids recently took their families on a field trip to Newport Aquarium to celebrate the end of the summer. It also may look like parenting courses, appropriate family therapy opportunities, and so much more.
Goal 2 is to expand safe and secure housing. Here's why we care. More than 500 families are without housing every night because of domestic violence. At Coburn Place, we only have capacity to serve 100 of them. We are the only organization offering the type of services and housing to families in the county and state, and it's not enough. 400 families each year go without, and we need to do more. Families who are homeless because of domestic violence have unique barriers and needs, and they deserve support that makes sense for them. We know that these families, number one, they're typically Black women-headed households. They have critical safety risks. They might be actively stalked or threatened. They are very reluctant or avoid using systems because systems have often caused bad outcomes for them. Not chronically homeless. Typically, families who are homeless because of domestic violence are without housing for the first time. Unlikely to need permanent support. If given the time and tools, evidence shows that they are not more likely to ever experience homeless again. We have a multi-pronged approach, expanding and housing homes. Currently, we have a dedicated building in an old elementary school where 35 families live rent and utility free. We also help with rent and utilities for more than 50 families scattered across 15 zip codes. In both programs, housing support lasts up to 2 years, and there are a huge host of support services offered during it. We see expansion as potentially an additional building to offer more co-located services, and we are exploring what this might look like. What we know is that there is a crisis in the city. A combination of homelessness and soaring domestic violence is leaving hundreds of families in peril, and we must rise to meet that need.
For the third goal, we look at our organizational structure. A key guiding principle of domestic violence care is that you can't be trauma-informed to survivors without being trauma-informed to staff. So our third goal is all about inspiring an inclusive and effective team. And that in that area, we want to prioritize and lift up to you is Coburn desires to become a pro-Black organization. Taking pro-Black stances enable us to acknowledge and focus on addressing the unique and compounding struggles Black women experience. This has an impact. Black women often face interlocking systems of oppression, injustice, and discrimination for both their race and gender, in addition to experiencing domestic violence at a disproportionate rate. Taking a pro-Black stance enables us to acknowledge this and focused on addressing the unique and compounding struggles Black women experience. We are so excited about this and see how it will help create more inclusive and effective solutions for our diverse clients and staff members, a more just and equitable system care, a stronger community, and a society where everyone can flourish.
Finally, our fourth priority goal is to cultivate a sustainable community of support. Coburn Place was born out of the community's insistence that everyone deserved a safe home. They listened to what survivors said they needed, and they raised money, capital, and volunteers to create this mission. And in the 26 years since, they've lifted it up again and again. This mission belongs to all of us. Now, personally, as the chair of the engagement committee, I'm excited about this one. I love to see people getting involved, mobilizing their talents and connecting with each other to make impact happen. As we look to the future, we know that to stay sustainable, we will need to build a bigger table for more community members who want to get involved, whether through volunteering, giving, or advocacy. We know we will need to help share a compelling story and show people where the need is. We also know we will need to continue to raise unrestricted dollars to make sure survivors have what they need. For 26 years, we've done this, and we can do it because we do it together. And we all benefit when families are safe. It makes our neighborhoods safer, which in turn makes our city safer.
Wow, thanks, ladies. It's so exciting to hear you talk about all of this. Let's welcome Coburn Place CEO Rachel Scott onto the screen as we are now going to open it up for questions.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have so many of you joining us and look forward to hearing what kinds of questions you have.
We've been collecting them from the start, so let's see what questions we have out there. Anyone with any questions? Okay, here's the first one. What are your primary funding sources?
Our primary funding sources are public grants. So we get housing grants through the city that come from HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And then we also have a lot of funding sources that are particularly for survivors of domestic violence or victims of crime. So can share more about those if people need, but public grants make up a little more than half of our budget.
Okay, here's another one. Are any of those sources at risk? That's a great question, Michelle. Rachel, you can take that one.
Sure. So the Victims of Crime Assistance, VOCA, is actually it is had a kind of a wonky way that it was financed, that the federal government, that Congress has created, and so there are actions right now that are available. If you want to know more, we partner with our friends at the Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence for legislative advocacy, but those cuts are definitely expected in future years, and I think that will impact not only us, but domestic violence programs around the whole country.
Okay, our next one is, what's the biggest challenge to finding new housing units?
I would say that the biggest challenge for finding new housing units is the HUD sets a certain fair market rate that we can we use that in terms of like the family size, in terms of how much we can spend on rents for those survivors. And so finding in this kind of affordable crisis, the match between a landlord who has a unit that can pass an inspection, having that available at a price that we can afford under our grant is a challenge, but it is not impossible. We have a terrific housing team who works really hard to build those relationships with landlords.
Going back to funding, Sue is asking, what is your budget?
Hi, Sue. We're about a $5 million budget per year.
Great. We have a question here. Do you offer emergency shelter or hotels for individuals in crisis?
We do not. And Danyette, I would encourage you to offer other resources for individuals in crisis.
Yep. So as the director of the Indie Champions, one of our overall goals is to streamline those who are fleeing domestic violence to shelters here in the city of Indianapolis. So instead of re-traumatizing a victim of domestic violence by calling several numbers, seeing which shelter is available, our goal is to call them ourselves and then see what bed space is available. We call every 2 hours. And then if outside of one, so the Julian Center, we have to direct them to go directly to that shelter as far as calling. And then if nothing is available there, then they'll call us back and let us know nothing is available. There are hotel or alternatives, shall I call it, to emergency shelter placement, but typically those are for high lethality cases, which means that there is a potential chance of a homicide with those cases. But unfortunately, everyone wouldn't be able to qualify for an alternative shelter outside of the brick and mortar shelters when they're full.
So, Danyette, if someone was looking to get in touch with that service, what would they do?
So they can call the 24-hour telephone number, which is 317-210-0866. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week. And then our intake crisis coordinator would be able to do an intake, listen, see which shelters they qualify for, just because some they may not qualify for depending on the domestic violence, and then try to streamline them there or get them the services that they need.
That's great. And the number is in the chat for those of you that weren't able to write that down quickly. It looks like Stephen has a question. Have you been working with anyone to help plan what a new facility may look like?
I love that question. We have assembled a cabinet of affordable housing experts to advise us as we think about this process. So it is a really daunting and long-term task to take on. A lot of affordable housing involves tax credits and all kinds of things that I don't, certainly is not my area of expertise. So we have a group of about 10 of us who are working on that plan right now. And so that looks like something that is going to take shape more into next year. But I would also say within that goal around expanding housing, we are interested in looking at ways that we can improve the built environment that we have here at Coburn Place. It's a historic building, but it definitely has needs as well. So if that's something that anybody wants to be a part of, we have space for for thought partners on that. So you can just let me know.
That's great. And this one is a great question as well from Jean. She asks, are you looking to expand your board? And if so, what skills are in need?
Courtney, would you like to take that?
We are always looking for future board members and do have a few openings, but if I was pinning down a skill, I would just say that you need to be compassionate and have a passion for what we are doing at Coburn. There's no reason to have any professional skills or any kind of extra things to add to your resume. We just are really looking for people that have a passion for what we're doing and have a desire to really get involved and make a difference. Okay, let's see. There are a couple more questions. What is one thing beyond a direct financial donation that each person on this call can do in the next week to support the mission? That's a great question.
I think so one of the things I want to make sure that we do is that we have a copy of the strategic plan that you can see on our website. It's really set up really nicely as a flip book. Would love to have you, if you're interested enough in Coburn Place to be on this call, we so appreciate you and so glad to see you on here, Jacob. Sharing with somebody that you know about Coburn Place is a terrific way to get people involved. What that often looks like, and I'll let any of the staff or board members fill in here too, but we often give tours and, you know, are just happy to meet with people to kind of hear more about, you know, why you're interested. Getting to see the space yourself is a really special experience. And, you know, that often leads to opportunities to get involved, whether it's setting up apartments, maybe hosting a donation drive. And another thing that I would like you to think about is we are really excited to be having a gala October 4th at the Skyline Club. The Skyline Club picks a charity each year to feature in a fundraising event. And so we were really happy that they're going to, that they picked us. And so we're having that kind of evening cocktail attire sort of event as a way to really share this this vision of kind of our future and expansion with anybody who's interested. So gave you a couple things there, but take a look at the strategic plan, think about who you know who might be interested in getting more involved and have them reach out to us on staff. And then also take a look at the possibility of sponsoring or attending the gala.
We also had a secondary question, and this would probably go to Danyette. In response to the number to call for Indie Champions, how does that interact with the National Domestic Violence Hotline, if at all?
A couple ways. So we are set for Chicago's training. They have the training coming up, the national training in Chicago that's coming up. Statistics. And then as well as I believe we've interacted with someone from the Domestic Violence Network or the Domestic Violence Hotline. However, I can say that we are Marion County focused as well as the counties that touch Marion County too. So we're not a whole state focus like ICADV is, but we're more so of that Marion County center focus.
Great. This one from Jessica is kind of similar to what we could do in the next week, but how could individual community members best serve your organization? Is there anything else that we could add to the question or the answer that Rachel gave about what you all can do to help Coburn, whether it's in the next week, month, year?
Shonna, would you like to talk about the engagement committee here?
Sure. So we just recently started the engagement committee. And what that is, we bring all the volunteers together. If you want to volunteer, like Rachel said, we have a lot of opportunities to get involved. And we meet every other month, the last Tuesday of the month at Coburn Place for an hour. And we have a lot of opportunities to get involved. So if you're interested in you.
That's great. And Haley was nice enough to put some contact information in the chat as well, along with some emails that are great resources for anything that you all might want to get involved with. It doesn't look like we have any more questions. Anyone else on the team see questions that I'm not seeing? Oh, Julie says, Rachel, can you talk a little bit about how you're thinking about pacing these goals?
I think we'll have them all done by the end of the year. No, I'm kidding. Um, so I think the goal one, the work on reimagining and evolving survivor services, that's been ongoing for some time. And so we have several members of our direct service team here. They are doing really terrific work, just really cutting edge. And so I think, that work is ongoing, and I think it will continue. There are certain pieces of it that, may happen kind of next year. Like, for instance, we're going to have a survivor council, which will be really helpful in getting ongoing feedback from survivors as we move forward. This goal around expansion of housing, that's going to be a bit. Probably, this plan goes through 2027, and it would be amazing if we had new units that are available probably by 2026 would be pretty cool, but we have to get there from here, right? And so we want to make sure that we're having a really deliberate process, and that we're really thinking hard about who we want to work with in this work, because it's a long-term commitment to have those expanded buildings. The team work is also ongoing, and currently underway. And then this creating a sustainable community of support, I would say all of those things are ongoing. So some of the things kind of build on each other, but I feel like we've got a lot of momentum already going into this plan. So you're hearing about it today, but we were kind of making sure that this timing worked for our organization. As you all know, we have a really full summer with different events like our lemonade stand and so on. So thanks for your patience in hearing about it.
Great. Would any of the board members that are with us today like to share with the group what excites you the most about the plan, and maybe what do you think will be the hardest or most challenging, and what are we the closest to accomplishing? There's lots of questions there. So excites you, what is going to be the most challenging, and what are we the closest to accomplishing, board members?
I would like to share as the engagement committee chair, community engagement is what I'm most excited about. We need more volunteers. It's going to take all of us. We need all hands on deck, and the more people that get involved, the more we can get done, and the more we can help survivors. So community engagement is the piece that gets me really excited.
I would say for me, the thing that makes me the most excited is the support and the focus we're going to be having on making a full and inclusive team. We have staff members that are so incredibly dedicated to the work that we do at Coburn Place, and most of them work tirelessly and selflessly, and we need to really remember to think about them as well, because they are doing the work every day and are really, in the trenches with the survivors that we're supporting. So I'm excited to make that a part of our focus. As far as the hardest, most challenging, obviously, I think that it's just going to be the making sure that we have a sustainable system that can last for years and years to come. I think that will be an ongoing item that we'll be working on for years to come, I guess.
All right, I think mine would be goal two, to really expand the safe and secure housing. I know we talked about Coburn having that 100 and being able to help that 100. And I know as directing the Indy Champions, we see that 400, we talk to that 400 that don't have anywhere to go and they're looking for somewhere to go and shelters are full. So I think that I'm excited to know that, we're trying to reach a place to where eventually we can expand and be able to reach that other 400 one day. But then I know that that's also going to be the challenge to see how can we really get that expansion. Can we get more apartments or, can we really get that pipeline system through our city really working well for domestic violence survivors and the homeless.
I'm also excited about the expansion. It's definitely daunting. There is not a beginner's guide to it. But another thing that really excites me is the becoming a pro-Black organization. And I'm going to go ahead and address Julie's question here. So I think some of the ways that we've seen this on the day-to-day is connecting to funding sources that get this, I think, is one of the things. And so we, an example is that we applied for a grant through the Urban League, the Indianapolis African American Quality of Life Initiative. And there were priorities set through listening sessions for Indianapolis on that. And so we went in on the idea of reducing the stigma around Black mental health. And so what we've done is created an environment in, and always it's something, 60 to 75% of our clients identify as Black or biracial at Coburn Place. It's always been that way. And what we've done is we've created an environment where it's normal to go to therapy. We have a variety of therapists that work with us. And so what we've done is this idea of raising the tide for all boats with this. So we're really helping to kind of, I think, be pro-Black in that way. And another way that we are doing this is on being really intentional with our board recruitment, because again, we serve a majority Black women, and we've always been a white-led organization. And so I think that means, succession planning for our board leadership and certainly for our staff leadership. So I think that's the end of my answer.
Very well put. Any other questions that we have that are burning out there today? Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining us as we unveiled our strategic plan and talked about our next 3 years at Coburn Place. We really believe that everyone deserves a safe home, and that safe homes grow bright futures. If you have any more questions or would like to talk about this more deeply, and if you're interested in getting involved, please reach out. We'd love to get you connected. We're putting the full plan in the chat. It's already there. Thank you again so much for spending your lunchtime with us. We look forward to connecting again soon and hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.